All right, welcome back to Kale's Quick Hits, Episode 2, Afghanistan. All right, before I start, I just want to give a little bit about myself, where I'm from. I have over 25 years in the Air Force. I've worked the flight line, crew chief, expediter, all those roles. I also worked in the back shop a little bit. I was also a weather forecaster, and in my later years, I became a historian as well, too. Okay. I'm really from all over. I'm from the West Coast to the East Coast. I've been pretty much everywhere. I would not call myself a brat. My dad was a truck driver, Teamsters, by the way. But I have been all over. Okay, so I wouldn't say that I'm from one place or I really love one place. I am also from my civilian side, because I've been both active duty, guard, and reserve. Okay, I've been deployed as well, but I have also worked in law enforcement for a number of years, also in aviation, all the way with some of the big boys, the big three, whatever you want to call it, and that's from, again, from a civilian standpoint. Now, enough about myself. Let's get on to what you guys want to hear, talking about Afghanistan. I interviewed one of the loaders from the Kabul debacle when he was there, okay, last month. And for the sake of persecution, okay, I disguised his voice, and I'm going to call him Robert. So, in this interview, we covered a lot of ground, and I broke it up into little sections. Here's his first reply about the vetting process at the Kabul airport.
The vetting process was pretty loose. It was just kind of first come, first serve, so there were people rushing the aircraft a lot of the time. I don't know how our security handled all of that. Once they got to us, we didn't have any vetting process for them. It was just load them onto the aircraft. So we were putting 400 people on an aircraft built to hold 150, 200 people. So we couldn't really go through and check all of those, not to mention a lot of them are children, so they didn't really have any kind of identification.
So vetting process, loose? I mean, there was none. I mean, families were inside the airport, they were at the gates, some were even running to the aircraft. I mean, some had papers, some didn't. It looked like it was mass hysteria out there. I mean, now he talks about putting 400 people on an aircraft that fits 150 to 200 people safely, okay? Folks were packed in those tin cans like sardines, and all of the stanchions for seating, and then also for the lockdown, the cargo lockdowns, all of those things were removed, okay, on the C-17s and the C-130s. Again, that can hold passengers safely, okay? I mean, what happens if they do hit, like, they run into some turbulence? These people are going to be flying because there's no seatbelt, okay, there. So, and another thing is, can you imagine trying to go to the bathroom when you have 300 or 400 people around? Now, in a military plane, usually there is like one, sometimes maybe two bathrooms, but one like up in the forward cargo hall, or typically on a C-130, there's two in the back, and they're over on the hydraulic side by the ramps. And what you do is you stand there and you pee in this disposal area right there. Oh, and here's another thing. If you don't pull the curtain around you, everybody's going to see you pee. Okay? So, I mean, I can't even imagine, let alone being in a cargo hold. And I've been on some big aircrafts, including the C-5, with 350. And I've been to air shows. And I can honestly tell you that there wasn't even 300 people in the cargo hold of the C-5 as we were walking through an air show. Okay? So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about some aerodynamics.
When it comes to a C-130 aircraft, the CB can be thrown off just by like 150 pounds. With the C-17, it's much harder to throw off the CB. So unless you're putting thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of cargo on there, when it comes to people, it's not a huge deal. So I'm pretty sure they just kind of skimped the numbers a little bit and went over it. And as long as there was no redlining, it was good to go.
Okay, so what he's saying in this, he's saying the C of V, but in layman's terms, what he means is a C of G, and it stands for center of gravity. So I have a neat little prop here that I got from PPG Aerospace in one of the trade shows I've been to. All right, and look at this. It's got little wings. Ooh, go out like this. All right, so to explain this to you, what he's talking about, a load master within a formula here, within everybody loaded up, or equipment or supplies and everything loaded up, he will find where the C of G is. Now that is very important for an aircraft to fly. Why? Because if your C of G is too far forward and you take off, you'll stall, okay? Or if it's set too far back, your C of G is if you take off, and if you barely take off, okay, you'll basically nose planet, okay? So that's what he's saying, and I mean, he's saying on a whim and stuff like that. I mean, really? I mean, are you willing to take that chance? And look, I understand these C-17s and then also the C-130s, they really load some heavy cargo. I mean, we're talking about M1 Abrams, we're talking about Chinooks. I mean, yeah, I do understand that. But again, if you get a little bit too top heavy, or if you're a little bit too far on the aft end, you know, it could be catastrophic, okay? And I would not want to be the ones that put the pilots or the flight crew or even the refugees' lives in jeopardy, okay? So that explains a little bit about the center of gravity. Let's move on. All right, so this next one, and in this segment, I wanted to show you, but I want you to see all of it instead of showing his comments and everything. I want you just to understand the ramifications and how big of a cluster this was, both from the Afghan side and our side. I mean, look at our troops trying to establish, some type of order where ultimately chaos reigns. I mean, take a look at this picture. The Marine is giving a little kid a drink of water, you know, or other Afghans being slowly loaded up to the plane. And just look at these faces of these refugees that some of them know that if they were going to stay, they might be brought up or on some trumped up charge and, you know, trying to help the enemy and possibly ultimately killed. You know, that's why they wanted to leave and get out of there. So please keep this in mind when you're looking at this next segment and listen to what Robert has to say.
Yes, definitely more than 250 Americans. It was just an absolute ton of people, and there were a ton that didn't get picked up. When it came to loading cargo, we tried to we loaded as little cargo as possible to make as much room for people. So by the time I left, we probably filled up 15 C-17s, about 15 different aircraft. And some of them were Canadian aircraft. So working with the Canadian Loadmasters was an interesting experience, especially since a lot of them were French Canadian, spoke better French than they did English. So there was a bit of a language barrier there. And but once we finally got back, we realized that the Kuwaitis were very unhappy with the situation. They did not want the Afghanis there at all. And so it made putting them on the plane was easy, getting them off and getting them moved was a whole nother animal once we actually got back. It was just it was almost like just in groups of people. So it was just whenever they got in, they'd be assigned to a certain group, and that group was going to either, we sent a bunch to Sweden, to Switzerland, The Danish were there, so the Danish were taking them back to Denmark. There was all kinds of different areas that they were going to. The Kuwaitis just wanted them out of there. There was a point in time when we actually were finding places for them to stay before they could actually make it to their next location, that we were moved out of the airman dorms and put into the NCO dorms. So we were packed like 6 to a room for a good 2 or 3 week period during the NEO when all of those people were flooding in.
So I added a montage of the service members we lost from both the Marines, Navy, and Army. And let's never, ever forget the sacrifice that they made for this country, as well as the sacrifice that they did make in Afghanistan. Now, where does this Afghan evacuation, pull-out, retreat, call it what you want? Again, I like to say it's just a debacle, is what it is. Why did it have to happen like this? Well, you know what? Let's see what the big guy has to say about it, okay? All right, so President Biden on August 25th, he wrote on Twitter, and I don't know if it's really him or if it's one of his staffers or something, but he said, "We're going to do everything that can provide safe evacuations for Americans, our Afghan allies, partners, and Afghans who might be targeted." But the question I have is, did the administration really? I mean, you've heard stories about the Navy SEAL guys chartering a plane and sending it over. Glenn Beck sending planes over and getting people out. Heck, the one of the Navy SEALs, they didn't even let it leave almost a week to 2 weeks after. So it was there and on the ground for, I think, a day and a half or something. I'm not sure the entire time, but the majority of that time, patients were loaded. Not patients, but, refugees were loaded onto this plane, okay? And ready to go someplace else, all right? So I just think that, we could have done better. We could have done better on this. And even some of the things that I've heard that hit back even to my base, there was actually this guy, and apparently, I don't know what format he got it sent in, but I heard this from another airman that he was sending information saying, "Hey, I need help," and he was showing pictures, and he was in the pictures, and he was standing with Marines or soldiers or something, and saying, "Who do I need to contact about this?" I mean, he's contacting our base. We don't have anything to do. I mean, we do it directly, indirectly with the State Department, but we don't have anything to do with getting refugees out right now. I mean, so it looks to me like they didn't get everybody that they needed to get out. But again, that takes me into my next segment. Let's talk about what John Kirby, the Pentagon spokesman, said on November 9th, 2021. Kirby stated he doesn't have updated numbers on the number of family members inside Afghanistan, and it might be some time before we're able to get that. Some time? When? It's November. Do something, okay? Don't keep referring everybody to the State Department. If you want, we got all of our troops out and we're good. Thank you very much. End of press conference. We're done. Go home. I mean, what? Do something. Okay? All right. I mean, what is my take? What is my take on it? Okay? And I guess if you come to my show, if you come to my website, what is my take on it? Here's my take. With all the factors I know, and some of the people from high up to I know personally 2 people that were over there, boots on the ground. We could have done better. And we should have done better. We're Americans. We should have done better as an American, as a group, and we should have done better for the Afghan people, those refugees that really needed to go someplace. So, all right. That's my music. It's kicking in. If you have something to say, please comment. And remember, wisdom isn't just the words that you read. It's the actions you take and the knowledge you reciprocate.